It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. Today's date is the 27th of February. Tomorrow is the last day of February, John. Don't you sort of hate that?
I do. We have to say goodbye to Black History Month.
You know, me, in my many years living here in the St. Louis area, I've always felt that when you get past February, it's clear sailing. Now, I know we have some funky weather in March, but to me, it's like that's when the tides start to change, so to speak, as far as the weather. You agree or disagree?
Agree, and I've been so obsessive and compulsive about it that I've looked it up every winter just to double check. And the coldest month in St. Louis is always January. And then if you think of a pyramid, you have February is tantamount to December, March is tantamount to November. And then so once we're over the January hump, so to speak, we do continue to get a little bit warmer.
Thank you, Dave Murray. Okay.
I'm not in Palm Springs, Brad.
You know what the B Block's all about, John?
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
It is. And we started off with...
It's number 3.
John, I'm going to ask you a question. What is the problem with the people in the United States, not everyone, but a certain faction of them, being upset with the U.S. Olympic hockey team and specifically Brady Tkachuk? What is the problem, John? Do you understand what's going on with this? Can you maybe help me get my arms around this?
I do. First of all, the Tkachuks are from St. Louis.
Yes, I know that. That's
so
good.
People hate St. Louis because we're the Midwest. But also, if you think of typical angry liberals, if we must stereotype, the patriotic nature and the patriotic statements from the Olympic teams are just antithetical to hating America and hating what our country stands for. So when you take a bunch of men who are hanging out together, having a good time, and winning and executing on something and being proud of their country, that's antithetical to what the liberals are about.
Now, John, what year were you born in again?
1977.
Okay, so you were 3 years old when the Americans won against the Russians in 1980, the 1980 Winter Olympics, okay? But
correct, and as most people, let's point out, that was not the gold medal game, but that led us into the finals.
Right, but the point of my point being in that was a huge surge in patriotism in the United States. I lived through that. I can't remember. People talked about that for weeks after that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, we were also, sorry to interrupt, but at the time, we're also in the middle of the Cold War.
Right.
So defeating Russia was a huge deal. Now, defeating Canada is like if your kid's, fifth grade team beat a third grade team.
Well, that's sort of like remember. There's the story about the women's cup hockey or soccer team that they got beat by a group of 15-year-old kids from Dallas. You ever heard that story?
Yeah, and the 15-year-olds from Dallas also all had prosthetic legs. They had been run over in parking lots by dilapidated vehicles, too. But I interrupted your point, Brad. So you're asking why are angry shorthairs so mad about a bunch of men being happy? Well, I think we just answered the question.
And see here, one of the biggest stories, matter of fact, I've seen this story twice when I'm doing my prep work, and you don't believe I do my prep work. But I've seen the same story twice on two different sides where they're specifically going after Brady because of the fact that he said something about Trump, and they're asking for him to retract it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm going like, okay, I don't get what's going on with this.
Yeah, well, most of it was they had gone to your web properties and they saw last week's commentary about bad Brady. So they just thought that he was maybe a bad guy. So they were influenced by that.
Okay, the story is, if I can find it again real quick. No, I can't find it. It's gone. Anyway, we'll move on.
It was up on St. Louis Public Radio today. They specifically mentioned Brady.
Right. And he's the one. They're not happy with the entire team, but Brady's the one that everybody is. The people who are not happy are focusing their ire on. You know what I'm saying? Which I don't understand. He's a good kid. He's from Missouri. His dad played for the Blues. All that kind of stuff. Okay, ready for number 2?
Yeah, let's hear it, Brad.
It's time for Brad's number 2. It's time for Brad's number 2.
There are some times when I see businesses fail, and most of the time you see this, like in the Post-Dispatch, another business is moving out of downtown St. Louis, or another company that is closing down that did business in the city of St. Louis for years and years and years, decades, maybe even a century. Rarely do you see a story that's gotten so much attention about a business closing in St. Charles County, specifically Dardenne, Prairie. This is a big news item. You know why, John?
No, why?
It was the first foray into the St. Louis area by another coffee company. This one's out of the West. I believe they're headquartered in Utah, called Beans and Brews. And they have this special coffee that they grind at a high altitude in wherever the heck they're from, and it's imported into the St. Louis area. And they opened up 9 months ago in Dardenne, Prairie, built a brand new building with sit down and drive through, and tomorrow's the last day. 9 months, and they're closing. Now, I can tell you the problem, John. I can tell you the problem.
What's the problem?
I checked my membership list on the Westplex Chamber of Commerce, and the company named Beans and Brews does not appear on that list. If they were to have joined the Westplex Chamber, even 8 months ago, maybe even 7 months ago, for sure even 6 months ago, they would probably be announcing 3 more locations in the Westplex. But no, they didn't join.
A dramatic expansion if they had joined. And remind folks, if they join the Chamber of Commerce, what benefits do they get?
All sorts of benefits. You get
those include?
Well, it's the same thing when you join AAA. You get, free parking at the airport, stuff like that.
And you show your membership card?
You show your
and
membership.
People say, wow, Brad suckered you too.
No.
You can find Brad outside most shopping centers in St. Charles County with little poppies. And then he'll also hand you a poppy in exchange for a donation. And he'll tell you about 2 things: the Westplex Chamber and the LDN, the Low Dollar Network. Now, that's only until March 1st, because after March 1st, Brad's going to have a brand new project to work on and that he'll be promoting up until April 1st. You see how this works?
I got a cease and desist letter from you never guess who.
Bill Eigel.
Bill Eigel.
Yeah, I bet you did. And it was the same attorney that Tracy Ellis used, right?
Yeah, because he used to work for her. He did. Matter of fact, he was there. Once upon a time, how things change. I got invited to Rick and Tracy's grand opening of their radio station years ago, and now my favorite story is it directly involves you when you started doing the show with me, and they blocked you from all their sites.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Hey, it's guilt by association.
Yes, I guess so. Okay, number 1.
And now, big finish, Brad's number.
I am going to disagree with Mike Kehoe, being that I'm going to show my true Republican roots here, where Mike Kehoe is actually being a Democrat when he's saying that safety inspections are important. Now, let me take it this way. I believe that the Republicans should follow through on the same thing they've done with concealed carry. And I think instead of you having to get a driver's license in the state of Missouri, you should essentially, and matter of fact, if you look closely at the Constitution, there's a couple of chapters in there, a couple sections in there about driving your automobile, and I think you should have a right to drive. I believe there should not be any restriction on anyone driving. And matter of fact, I think that in the state of Missouri, CDL, I think that you should be able to show up and they will give you one of the primers that when I had in first grade, and it says C spot, run. If you can read those first 2 pages of that primer, you get a CDL driver's license. Now, let me take it one step further. I don't believe there should be inspections at Ameren UE's Callaway nuclear plant in Callaway County anymore. I don't think there should be any inspections of restaurants by the county and the local authorities on health and things like that. I don't think there should be any inspections if you're getting a house built. I don't think there should be any inspections for the plumbing inspection. I don't think there should be any inspection for the electrical inspections. And take it one step further. I believe that if you live in Missouri and you decide one day you drive past the Spirit of St. Louis Airport and you see those planes out there and you say, you know what, I want to learn how to fly one of those planes. I think you should just be able to, pull a UE out there on Highway 40, go across the overpass there on Chesterfield Airport Road, which the overpass is the Spirit of St. Louis overpass, and stand up there for 10 minutes, take some videos, and then have the police try to arrest you. But then go into the airport and learn how to fly. Just jump into one of those cockpits and take off in that plane. And when you get to the point where you can land and take off at least twice without crashing the plane, I think you should be given a FAA license. What do you think, John?
I think I know a libertarian woman who listens to the show who just climaxed.
I don't see. This is the problem I have. The problem I have is that being essentially a libertarian, but now I'm an American, a libertarian, as opposed to a lot of people saying, oh, you don't want any laws. No, libertarians want laws. They want laws that are, as opposed to our truck drivers from Minnesota, that you drive on the right side of the highway. That's the kind of laws we want. And that if there's a stop sign, you stop at the stop sign. And if there's a red light, you don't drive through the red light. You stop at the red light. That's the kind of laws we like. We like laws that essentially keep us all sort of safe and protect us from the nutbags that are out there and stuff like that. But we don't want goofy, stupid HOA rules and goofy stuff like that if you leave your trash cans out past noon on a Thursday, that you get fined and stuff like that. That's where it gets obsessive. And what I don't quite understand is, why is it that we have pieces of metal flying down the highway? Most of the cars are probably between, right now, the small cars are like 3,000 pounds up to like 5,000 and 6,000 pounds for like the SUVs and things like that, and the tractor trailers and things like that. Why is it that those vehicles should not be inspected to make sure that the muffler doesn't come off? I can remember, John, this is going way back. And you're not going to believe I remember this story, but there was a reporter, and it was a very, very, very sad story. A reporter at Channel 4. His name was Steve Trankman. Do you know the story by any chance?
No, I don't.
Steve Trankman was a reporter at Channel 4, and he was driving home from work one night, working downtown St. Louis, and he was going west on Highway 40, right near the Clayton overpass there, if you know where you can get off there at Clayton Road and Skinker and things like that. And he was making that curve, and there was a lady heading east on 40, and her muffler was hanging by a thread, and at the last minute, her muffler fell off, and it bound up into her wheels, and she lost control of her car, and she flew across the interstate, became airborne, and it smashed into Steve Trankman's car and killed him instantly. Okay, there is an example of if she should have had a safety inspection, they would have caught that, and Steve Trankman would be alive today and probably be retired from Channel 4 right now and have his kids grow up and everything would be good. I say it's ridiculous to get rid of the safety inspections. That's just me, and I think the people. Here's how I would say it. I would say that the people who, if you have a car that's less than 6 years old, every second month you have to have a safety inspection, because we all know that sometimes those guys in Detroit and wherever they make their cars, especially if they come from like those, across the ocean, sometimes all the bolts aren't tightened down right. Sometimes the parts are defective from the manufacturer. And once you get to 6 years, then you don't have to have an inspection for every year. What do you think, John?
Yeah, and for folks who didn't hear our original discussion about this earlier in the week, Brad, you were a bit flummoxed by the fact that if you have a newer car, you don't have to get the safety inspection. And because, Brad, you buy old clunkers and old dilapidated vehicles, and you said it was discriminating against people that choose to not invest in a nice car, right?
Well, it's not discriminatory. It's just to the point where I just think it's wrong because
Yeah, you said it was discrimination earlier in the week. I know you probably don't remember that. But yeah, you said that it's discrimination, and then you attempted a house analogy. Now, I think the government's real role is to keep universities from giving journalism scholarships to people that can't pronounce the word nuclear.
What was that word again?
Nuclear.
Spell that for me.
Nuclear. Nuclear.
That's a company that makes face clear. It's like pimple cream, isn't it? Nuclear.
It's Noxzema. You're thinking of Noxzema there, Brad. A little silicic acid.
Okay, John, we're going into the C block. Okay. For those of you who listen on a regular basis, do you mind if we talked about a little bit about clavicular again? Would you mind that?
Oh, I love Brad. I don't do the whole, hey, you'll never believe who I talk to because I'm not you. But a lot of feedback on our B and C block. And actually people were like, when Brad hears about something, it's like, wow, talk about jumping a shark. But clavicular has reached the mainstream. So let's continue talking about it. I love this topic.
Yeah, you were like Mr. Authority on it yesterday. I
kind of spent some time around that part of the internet, Brad.
Oh, the weirdo part of the internet? Is that what
yeah. You know how weird it is, Brad? It's a bunch of old people sitting around saying, I can't believe so-and-so retired from radio and is enjoying their life. Let's sit around and complain about the industry. We're such weirdos.